Hello everyone, glad you could join us on Insights. My name is Nnamdi Adipo. Welcome to the program. Let me give you a quick rundown of the major issues to look forward to on this episode. We will review the essence of religious fasting and its impact on the individual and society at large. Does it align with the precepts of eat less and live longer, or are the experiences of the Christian Lent and the Islamic Ramadan purely spiritual with no nexus at all to societal harmony and growth? Well, we have two gentlemen, members of the clergy, ready to provide insight on this subject matter. We'll also take a look at the seeming rise in the impersonation of uniformed personnel and its implication for internal security in Nigeria. Well, that promises to be an interesting conversation, seeing how there are different dimensions to insecurity in Nigeria. We will discuss why impersonation of police or military armed personnel constitutes a grave danger to curbing insecurity across parts of the country. Well, now, let's get started.
Whatever the issues are,
the National Assembly is constitutionally empowered to scrutinize,
however complex or intricate.
We have involved all the academia, the members of the academia. We have involved the academies.
Be it government policies or in fact any issue of public concern.
Our job is to help you gain clarity and make sense of it all.
This is not really healthy for our democracy.
There's a lot of aggrievance in terms of who has been in power longest and who becomes the governor of the state.
It's also in the quality of food being consumed.
After all, perception is insight.
And gaining understanding is also getting insight.
Let me begin by referencing the Christian Lent, which basically ends on Easter Sunday and is seen by Christians, mostly Catholics, as a sign of sacrifice and a test of self-discipline. Well, Christians generally believe this to represent the sacrifice of Jesus Christ when he went up to the mountains to pray and fast for 40 days. That was before his crucifixion on the cross. And now to the Ramadan, rightly described as the fourth pillar of Islam. The Ramadan fast, of course, is regarded as an act of worship to attain God's conscious piety and one of submission to Allah. For Muslims, the fast is an act of deep personal worship and it means to seek a richer perception of God. Now, these two religious fasts, whether it's the Lent or the Ramadan, do they translate from personal spiritual benefits to public good, and perhaps do they have expansive national gains as well? Let me bring in my guest to give us perspective on these issues. Reverend Father Stephen Akpan is the parish priest of St. Josephine Baita Catholic Church, Jikoya in Abuja, and Imam Mustafa Agbariri is Chief Imam, Peace Courts Estate Central Mosque in Lokogoma, Abuja. Gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you both to Insight. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
Imam?
Thank you for having me.
Great. So I think I'll start with Reverend Father. Father, I recall how it was that at the end of 40 days of fasting by Jesus Christ, of course, that was when he now started his public ministry. So it does seem like sacrifice, self-discipline and reflection are prerequisites for greater spiritual growth and for perhaps a better experience and relationship with God. Are they also tenable for even the tasks of ministration like they were for Jesus Christ, for Christians these days?
Well, fasting, prayer, and almsgiving are not just having private or individual benefits. It has even also communitarian benefits.
Communicarian?
Communitarian.
Community. Yeah, community.
It has a communitarian benefit. Beside helping the person who is fasting to mortify himself, deny himself, it gives the person the opportunity to control the flesh. And when you are able to control the flesh, it gives a better credence to the spirit. It sets the spirit free and also affects whatever you do, affects the community as a whole. You start as an individual, but it goes further to affect the community. Of course, while you are fasting, you cannot be a partner to sin or crime. When you are fasting, you cannot be a partner to what is inimical to the community or the society. You will surely want to be closer to God, because it is the opportunity that we have to create a better relationship or deepen our relationship, not only with ourselves, not only with our neighbors, but also with God. And of course, if you truly love God, there are certain things that must be avoided. Sin should be one of them. Bad treatment of others will be one of them. And bad attitude of life will definitely be one of them. So fasting...
And of course, these are virtues, these are things that transcend self. I mean, you want to be good to your neighbor, that's beyond, going beyond yourself and impacting on other people's lives. You want to be good to others. It means sacrificing certain things for somebody else's benefit. Am I right?
You're correct. Definitely fasting helps you do that. Prayer helps you do that. Almsgiving helps you do that.
Imam, let me just cross over to you now. I feel and I sense that it's somewhat the same for Muslims, and I sense that the Ramadan, though a period of sacrifice and inspiration for the faithful, is also a period of temptation. I somewhat suspect. How do Muslims reconcile, these with submission to the will of Allah as well, especially during Ramadan?
Well, it can never be better introduced than what my other colleague has said about the fasting. Fasting is a denier of what those lustful dispositions that the flesh will have in human beings. When you deny yourself of all those things, you see that you're creating a better relationship with your Creator, Almighty Allah. And that is exactly what Muslims are going through now. When you deny yourself, you are submitted to that person, because God Almighty is not with you. But you are conscious of Him internally and innerly, to the effect that, yes, He is seeing you. You won't take water, you won't take food, you will not have any cohabitations with your partners. With that, you are creating a better connection. That is why it is said in one of the narrations of the Prophet that Allah says that kullu amal ibn Adam illa lahu illa sawm. As-sawmu li wa ana ajzi bihi. All the deeds of human beings are for them. When you pray, you're praying for yourself. When you also go to Hajj, of course, you are going to have benefits, because when you come back, somebody will be calling you Alaji. When you also give alms, it is a kind of connection you are creating between yourself and the downtrodden. But fasting is for yourself, and it is for Allah. Allah says, it is mine, and I'm the one that can give the recompense.
Imam, I do have one dua for you.
Yes.
When I was doing my research on the Ramadan, I actually came across this dua for guidance. It's actually written in Arabic, but I do have the English translation here. I would like to read out this translation. It says, "O Allah, show me guidance as guidance, and allow me to follow it. And show me error as error, and allow me to avoid it."
Yes.
It raises a key issue of mindset during fasting. And goes back to this original question that I asked about reconciling, these desires that you've talked about sacrifice.
Yes.
You've talked about reconciling that desire, as a believer to total submission to Allah's will.
Yes. Yes, that is what you just said is what I read in Arabic as Allahumma arinil haqqa haqqan warzuqni ittiba'ahu wa arinil kadhiba kadhiban wa arzuqni al-infiragha anhu. It means that you want God to show you the truth as the truth, so that you have the wherewithal of following it. So, and that is exactly what we are practicalizing in Ramadan. Ramadan will tame all the lustful disposition in you, like I said the other time. You will not be able to do sins. My colleague said it the other time. You won't create harmful dispositions against your neighbors, against your communities. You create peace because a fasting person will not fight. In fact, it is reported in the hadiths that when you meet a person that is engaging you in serious arguments, what you are going to say at that point in time is, and I saw him, I am fasting. I am not going to engage you in any crisis, disposition. So these are the benefits of fasting in terms of deepening your own relationship and your connection with your Lord, Creator Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala.
I am quite intrigued because, I mean, religious fasting has been with us, like, some would say almost forever. I mean, since the onset of religion, they've been there and they've been observed. And Imam, you talk about this self-denial, self-discipline. Father here talked about, I mean, the whole experience bringing us closer to our Maker, to God, making us more open to, those good virtues and, godly virtues, I should say. Let's relate that to current times and, our society and things happening around us. And Father, maybe I'd like for you to come in here. I mean, okay. we do all of this. And yet, in spite of this supposed purity, like supposed godliness, supposed path that was supposed to tread this whole period, I mean, do we see that resonating in the larger society? Do I go out now and I drive down the road of Gaiki and I see, because of this whole period of religious fast and how people are, I don't see people break the law, cross traffic light when it's red. I don't see somebody shouting at his neighbor just because I blocked or I barred his way for a few seconds. I mean, do we see that resonating? Do we see that godliness out there, resolute and resounding in the larger society?
Thank you. I think at different times and different places, we find them. But we may not be able to find them in all the places and at all times. The reason being that we are created differently. The differences in human nature, our attitude, even our understanding of issues. There are people who are deeply involved in the religious fasting within this Ramadan and within this Lenten season. And nothing distracts them. They do it well. But there are people, despite the fact that they are actually doing well too, they are still also not backing off the challenges and the lure and desires for sin and all others. Of course, there are people who also find glory in breaking laws and things like that. It is very common, which we see, you find people who are fasting, who drive and even tell people, shege, waka, while they are driving. They curse people, yet they are fasting, yet they are praying. But we should not allow the little that we find to take away the glory of the large part. Because whether you like it or not, there are many people who are actually making effort to keep to what is sane, especially when it comes to this fasting and the observance of Lenten season and Ramadan period. There are people who are making effort. There are also people who are not really making enough effort, and they are actually not struggling. But we continue to tell them, we continue to encourage them, we continue to talk to them. After all, God has given all of us what we call religious freedom. That is how they have chosen to use their freedom. But we will not relent in asking them to come back to the Lord. That is what the whole of this season is about. That is what Ramadan is about, and that is what Lent is all about, a season to return to the Lord and let go our past and begin afresh for the future.
Imam, I'd like for you to jump in here and add to what Reverend Father has just said, yes. Because it would, and this is just my opinion, If the lessons of Ramadan, say Ramadan, is not being exuded by the faithful, is not being practiced by the faithful, is that still fasting or is that just mere starvation? I mean, in your own book or in your own opinion, what does that now
Yes,
translate to?
My book, Al-Quran, is on the same page with the book of the Christians, that is the Bible, with respect to the observation of the fasting of Ramadan. The pastor has said it, and I can't even less agree with him. I have to agree with him completely. Some people, they fast, but they're not going to get any reward from that fasting except denying themselves only of the food and the drinks. That is the only thing that they are denying themselves of. They are not going to get any reward. The prophet said it, that are fasting, some people are going to get just the hunger as their own reward in fasting. If they don't do it perfectly, there are rules of and directions of on everything we do under the sun. We have the don'ts and the do's. You just gave a similarity of the person or the people who violate the rules of the road. Yes, it's one of those
just
things.
as an example.
As
just
an example, yes,
because
yes, as an
there are
example.
there are other acts
So
as
many
well.
examples
Yeah,
are also
exactly.
there. Some people engage themselves in fracas. Some people abuse themselves, just like the word uwaka, ori oda, ori okwe on the road. All these put together, they are the vitiating elements of fasting. Your fasting will not be accepted if you don't adhere strictly to the rules of fasting.
Father, there's a side to this whole exercise, of fasting, and I would like for you to talk about that. I mean, I'm sure you're familiar, I don't know if you are, with this cognitive dissonance, the body being used to having food at certain times of the day, certain number of foods at certain times of the day. I'm wondering, I mean, in the context of what we're discussing now, fasting, of course, I know it's not starvation, by the way, but it also denying one's body certain pleasures and certain things that the body ordinarily is used to. When it comes to this whole issue of cognitive dissonance, doesn't that disassociation, the body now trying to experiencing some withdrawal symptom as a result of not having what it is used to at certain times of the day, this disassociation, doesn't it reduce the spiritual goal or ramification of the fast?
Actually,
when the person is struggling with self, and the person's mind is not really now focused on the core essence of the fast, because that person is probably experiencing a cognitive dissonance.
Actually, it does not reduce the quality of the fast. The reason being that is the center and the reason for the fasting. Sacrifice.
Okay.
It is meant for the person to sacrifice. And you cannot sacrifice anything that costs you nothing. Of course, you enjoy eating, you enjoy drinking, you enjoy your food. For you to sacrifice, it means that the sacrifice must have a value. And in this case, the value of what you're sacrificing is that satisfaction and the joy that you have from it. So it does not in any way, rather, it goes to contribute to the spiritual well-being, development and sustenance of the person that we are talking about. So it does not in any way depreciate the value of the fasting itself. So if a Christian is fasting, and because in Christianity we can drink water,
yes,
while we are fasting.
Okay.
We can drink water, and in fact, certain people are exempt from this fasting, like children, those who are sick, those who are on medication, those who are above 59 years and those 59 and above. They are actually not so much encouraged to fast, but all others are encouraged to gain the spiritual benefits, to mortify, to punish the flesh in order for the soul or the spirit to be better.
Punish the flesh.
Yes.
Imam, would you like to add to?
Yes.
Add to what?
Yes, there is a monster in men. That monster is what drives us to do some evils. and that is the flesh. So that monster can only be punished, can only be chained by deniers. When you deny the monster of the luxuries, of course, you see that the soul will now have connectivity, direct connectivity with God Almighty. Soul is the connect that we have with our God, not this flesh, because that is why when we die, the flesh will rot away, but soul will be the one that will face the questioning from God Almighty. So, in order for us to earn the holiness and the connectivity with the Lord Almighty that created us, we have to sacrifice. So, that is why I will see it from the angle of another saying that tough times will never last, but tough people will last. It tells you that during the fasting, you have to toughen yourself up. You have to be resilient against all things that are luxurious inside you before. You tell the body that body, I have to follow my God. I'm leaving you for now. God is telling me
so
to
Imam,
do this.
can I ordinarily turn a difficult and hard time, maybe like now,
Yes.
I do not have money in my pocket
Yes.
To buy food.
Yes.
Can I turn it into a fast?
No, you cannot turn that into
But
fast.
I'm
But
also
let me tell you,
denying. I'm also denying myself certain things now. Things
Yes.
are difficult for me.
No,
so I'm
for
saying,
Ramadan.
okay, this difficult time, I will turn you to a fast. Let me deny my body now.
Yes.
From having this food.
you know Ramadan
because I don't have money. So
Ramadan has its own time. So whether you like it or you don't like it, you have to fast during Ramadan. We also have people that are exempted. The young, the old, the aliens, they are exempted. Yes, like what the Reverend Father said. But at times when you don't have, you can say, yes, God, that is after Ramadan. God, I want to sacrifice because I don't have. Give me the reward of not having. And use that to also pray to him to provide for you. So the issue of difficulties we are going to now, I want to talk from the side of the psychology.
yes.
About Ramadan and our harrowing times now.
Okay.
It's about resilience. It's about developing discipline when you don't have. It's about being able to withstand the rough time, the tough time. Withstand it. You'll see that they won't last. Before you know, they're going to be a light at the end of the tunnel. God is also speaking to us that we should learn how to reduce our consumptions. We are consuming nation. We consume too much. He's telling you that you can live with little. It's not that you must have many and plenty. When you have little, you can live with it. He's telling you that you can as well share with others. Those things that you are amassing inside yourself, inside your home, and the one that you are gulping every day, share with people. That is another psychological development that we are going to get from the fasting, apart from the spiritual. Share with people. Also love people.
Yeah, because I was just going to say, I was
Yes.
waiting for you to touch on this, because I'm sure you realize, and like most of us know, that there are families currently struggling with how to get food now just on their table. And then here comes Ramadan, a period of sacrifice, a
Yes.
period of self-reflection.
Yes.
And they engage in this service to God, of course.
Yes.
And looking onto Allah's face also for reward. And they do not have food on the table. They do not. When the fast ends during the day, they're likely not to even have something to eat. Maybe not even water to drink. What is the message out there for people, at this time, even for families impacted and for families who have, who ought to share with families who do not have?
Yes, apart from fasting, it's a month of charity. The month of Ramadan is telling you that you should love one another, share with people, reduce your own consumption in order to save for other people, not to save for yourself. In fact, it is recommended that if you're fasting and you also break a person that is fasting, you're going to earn the reward of the fasting of that person. And it will not affect your own reward, the reward that you are going to get. So this is the month that when you give people food, God will multiply his own blessing on you. It is recommended. Give people iftar. That is why you see, we go to the mosque. When we're breaking our fast, you don't do the one that you take only and your family alone. No. Break the barrier. Allow people to come to your house. encourage them to eat with you. When they are going, also provide for them.
So I'd like to come to you, Father. I mean, when we started this whole conversation, there was something you said, and I thought it was quite striking. And that was how quickly, I was intrigued at how quickly you linked Lenten season, religious fasting, to having not just self-benefits, but then having a more expansive community benefits. I don't know, Father, there's an angle to this whole discourse I'd like for us to talk about. Are you familiar with the story of the priest and the drunk? Have you heard the story? Maybe if not, I can quickly tell you the story as well. You know, there was a priest that sat opposite a drunk in a bus, in a moving vehicle one day. The drunk was struggling to read a newspaper in the vehicle. At some point, the drunk asked in a slurred voice and asked the father, that is, Father, what is arthritis? The priest, who obviously had seen the drunk and how he was struggling, saw this as an opportunity to admonish the drunk for what he was and answered him by saying, well, arthritis is an affliction caused after years of being drunk while engaging in various negative behaviors like habitual smoking, prostitution certainly, and having binges and all of that. The drunk just shouted unconvincingly and continued struggling with the paper. A while later, the priest now asked the drunk, how long have you had arthritis? The drunk raised his head and replied, I do not have arthritis. It says here in the newspaper that the Pope has arthritis. Well, that may seem funny, but I want to think that would have been a teachable moment. And it is a teachable moment for us all, Father.
Sure.
Even now, as we head towards Easter, which is just maybe a couple of days away from now, and Christians see Easter as the cornerstone of the Christian faith, because without Christ dying on the cross and rising, I don't think there would have been the Christian faith.
Sure.
How important is it not to judge by sight, but but by faith? And what is the lesson for us all as people, even now? And remember, we're not just talking, and I liked how you started. Remember, I said I liked how you started by taking it away from personal self and making it into something much larger. So even now, as things are, for us as Nigerians, not just for Christians, but all children of God, both Muslims, both the traditional worshippers, including the traditional worshippers, I should say, and the atheist, inclusive, who does not even believe in the first place. I mean, what's the lesson for us now? Putting that story of the priest and the drunk in context.
Well, because we are trying to bring it out and let it have a larger implications to the community and not just to an individual. I feel personally that it should relate not just to the self, but also to others. Because in Christianity, fasting cannot be complete except it ends in charity. And charity we are talking about is not charity to the self.
Yes.
It is actually charity to others who are in need. And
not judging them by their situation. That's the linkage I want you to establish, Father. I'd like for you, in explaining all of these, I mean, remember the story of the priest and the drunk now. And as Christians, the Bible says, do not judge by sight. Right? Or do not, the Bible is actually quite explicit on this issue. We believe not by sight, but by faith.
By faith.
You understand? I would like for you to now link that. I mean, take this as your pulpit now and preach to your viewer and tell them, look, this is the period where you do not judge. This is the period of charity. Considering all that is happening, Father, you have a couple. My director just said you have like 60 seconds to round off.
Thank you.
About that.
It is the answer is very simple.
Yes.
Because judging by what you see, by sight, may not actually be the real truth and the reality that should be judged from, that is on ground. You should also judge by the faith that we have.
Yes.
When you think of the faith, you really need to know the different situation of people. Is these people actually in need and needs charity, or does this person not need? So you consider all those things, and it's not just by seeing the person you conclude that this person is in need, but You may live with them. You may see them. You may experience them. You are with their relatives. Their relatives may tell you, and people have told you about them. Besides, there are some people that once you look at them, you know the situation and the state of this person. So that is the situation.
So when you're helping, you help.
You help. You
And
just
not-
know that you are not actually helping
You
that
know.
person. You are helping God.
In concluding, Imam, because we're totally out of time now, I'd like for a very quick response to this last question, and that's in concluding. I mean, based on your knowledge and capacity, you know, as a religious guide, as a leader, I want to, is fasting a different experience for the elites? And I'm not just talking about, or rather, I'm talking about all grades of elites now, including those in politics. I mean, because, of course, we've seen there appears to be this nexus between religion, spirituality, and political elitism in Nigeria. So it would now seem somehow that the fast is somewhat different for the elites. In these holy months, both for Christians and Muslims now, we see and we bear witness to the interplay of religious identity and elite hypocrisy in our national life. Even now, Imam, even now, how disturbing is that for the clergy when you see some of these things like, you know, you've talked about charity, you've talked about, and yet you see certain class of elite, behaving somehow and somewhat not reflective of the teachings contained in the Quran as it concerns the Ramadan.
Yes. My take on that is that, you see, in this country...
Very quickly.
Yeah, in this country, we tend to be religious without being godly. Godliness is on top of religiosity. That is the problem. People will say, I'm an imam, I'm a pastor, I'm an alaji, I am this, I am alaja. But yet, they do things that are different, including our political class. They do things that are different to the teachings of the religion. So, to me, we have to adhere strictly, lock, stock, and barrel to all the teachings of the Holy Prophet Muhammad and the Jesus Christ, the Lord. So we have to adhere strictly to their teachings in order for us to earn God's blessing, for Him to be pleased with us. So that is the disconnect. That is the area that is polarizing us from religiosity and godliness. Our own attitude is what is polarizing us. And if we bring our attitude within the compass of religion, we'll see that I will earn Allah's mercy.
I would have loved for us to go on and on and on because I can assure you I am not bored in any way. And I want to also think and believe that our viewer has found this quite engaging. Yes, indeed, we're very religious people, but I mean, Imam, you just said something quite profound there. It shouldn't be about religion, it should be about godliness. And I think that's a rather profound statement. I'd like to thank you both, Reverend Father Stephen Akpan, Parish Priest St. Josephine, Bahita Catholic Church, Jikoya in Abuja, and Imam Mustafa Agberere, Chief Imam, Peace Court Estate, Central Mosque, Lokogoma, Abuja. I'd like to thank you both for your deep insight on this issue. I mean, this is wishing that the gains of the fasting, which we are all part of, in this holy month will impact on us all as a nation and for our greater good. I'd like to thank you both for coming on Inside. Father, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Imam, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Great. Well, now to our next conversation. While sections 484 of the Criminal Code Act speaks to the general issue of impersonation in Nigeria, sections 251 of the Criminal Code Act is specific on bringing contempt on the uniform. It simply states that any person who, not being a person serving in any of the armed or police forces of Nigeria, wears the uniform of any of these forces or any dress having the appearance or bearing any of the regimental or other distinctive marks of any such uniform, in any such manner or in any such circumstances as to be likely to bring contempt on that uniform or employs any other person so to wear such uniform or dress, is guilty of a simple offense and is liable to imprisonment for 3 months or a fine of 40,000 naira. I should say 40,000 naira if I'm not mistaken. Why that is the law, the trend is unrelenting with many cases of impersonation of police or military officers often captured in the news, whether it's on mainstream media or the social media. Well, now let's talk about the varying dimensions to this issue in terms of internal security. My guest is Chikwe Udensi. Is that correct, Udensi?
Chikwe Udensi, yes.
Udensi, a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Forensic and Certified Fraud Investigator of Nigeria and a systems consultant, Interpol National Central Bureau here in Abuja. I'd like to welcome you to Insight. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Great, fantastic. It's actually good to have you here. Well, let's begin with perhaps the most basic in terms of the security implication of this trend and the lapses that criminals have often exploited and continue to take advantage of by impersonating uniformed personnel. How dangerously close have we come, or could we come if this trend is not cut down in its prime? Seeing some of what we have seen and what we have heard criminal elements do while dressed in uniformed, while dressed as uniformed personnel, impersonating uniformed officers. How deeply ingrained has this become in our society, and why should the trend be controlled?
It's become a big problem, a very massive problem. This is because almost all security agencies, all personnel of security agencies in the country are all sitting within the communities doing internal security. It ought not to be that way.
Which is an aberration.
It is an aberration. Internal security are often essentially the job of the police, the Nigerian police force, in our own case. And their job ought not to have crossbreeds of duty. But that's exactly what we have today. For you to see the military on the streets in most countries of the world, that is where there is a very serious breach, security breach. That is when you see the military. That is when you see other agencies on the streets. But here in Nigeria, all agencies are doing internal security. And that multi-facial attitude of everybody being within the armed forces, being within the security forces, it creates a problem. And if we don't find a way to curb it,
so it makes it more susceptible to being, I mean, officers now being impersonated. Is that what you're trying to say?
Absolutely.
I get that it's an aberration according to our laws, but certain exigencies have made it have made it almost compulsory for the military to intervene in internal security issues.
Well,
isn't that why they are there? You are now saying that this is may also be responsible for why we're seeing a seeming rise in the incidents of impersonation of armed military personnel.
That is the problem we have. The sustainability of everybody having to wear, especially the camouflage we have today. You can see that within the armed forces, there's one simple camouflage. That same camouflage is also worn by the Nigerian police force. It creates some semblance of confusion. It sends a very wrong message. And it allows the general public a free flow of the use of this camouflage, which creates enormous problem in the society. What we are saying is very simple. Let us have a complete and clear internal security mechanism that is being handled by one specific arm of the forces, the Nigerian police force. Let them do the job of internal security. If they do the job of internal security, the issue of easy access to the uniforms of the police and also the easy access to even arms and ammunition will be sizably curtailed to a large extent. But that's exactly what problem is often associated with having all facets of the armed forces on the streets of the nation. It creates a problem, but confusion, total confusion.
Well, I get that, and I can relate with what you're saying, but I do also know that they have distinctive uniforms for certain cadre of officers within some of these forces, whether it's the police, whether it's the army or the navy or the air force and all of that. But the point being that, look, that they are, even at that, we still see certain elements, criminal elements, impersonating certain cadre of uniformed officers. But having said that, and having established that, I look at certain provisions, or rather the provisions of the Criminal Acts Code in that section 251 that I reeled out earlier, and I look at the punishments stipulated there, and I wonder if that is even enough as a deterrent. Do you also wonder about that as well? I mean, 3 months and
absolutely. I do
40,000
not think that's enough deterrent. When we have some of these laws made over the years, when those values of money were relatively very high,
Yeah.
if things change, we should change them. Right now, that amount of money makes nonsense of a sizable deterrent of somebody who have impersonated as a law enforcement agency, law enforcement agency personnel. But let us look at it from this angle too. I know about the Nigerian police force.
Yeah.
The policemen buy their uniform from the market. It's in the market. This ought not to be the case. When you allow...
Because it opens up an avenue.
Yes, it opens up a clear avenue for people
Yeah.
to abuse it. The policemen today, their uniform, their shoes, their cap, their belt, it's in the open market.
Should I say something now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me just jump in here.
Let's go ahead.
You know, I'm sure you're familiar with the Louis Edits house. That's the force headquarters in Area 11, not so far from the headquarters of the NTA. Yeah.
This
This is just a reference to what you're saying.
Yes.
What you're saying right now. So you can actually still continue with your point after I say this. If you drive down that road, if you're leaving NTA and you're driving towards Louis Edits house, there are 2 filling stations along that route. There's the first one is Asman. Then of course towards the end of the road is where you have Total. Opposite Asman, that's why they have the police force, Nigerian police force pension commission, an office for pensioners or something. And then there's a police secondary school somewhere around there. I'm not trying to spoil anyone's market, but that place, just in front of that place, is an open market for police uniforms, police boots, and police apparels, as it is. And I am saying this, I mean, with no doubt, absolutely no doubt, because I have seen that not once, not twice. I mean, you see the trucks parked there. Anyone, I could easily go there without an ID card and purchase some of this apparel.
Well, that's my area. I'm the systems consultant of Interpol. You may not have known. I
did introduce you as a systems consultant.
Yes, I'm in charge of the Interpol system. So that my office is there. I'm running the Interpol systems there. So I know exactly what you're talking about. We have raised this issue over and over. We have raised the issue of having these apparels, security apparels, not just the police alone. Almost all law enforcement agencies in the country, and also the military, their apparels are being sold in the market. We have raised this issue over and over. If you make it a matter for public consumption, the public will consume it. That is simple. If you make it a matter where you have to belong to be able to find access or have access to it, then it becomes a difficult thing for people to have access in the first instance. So whosoever makes it available to them has broken the law in the first instance. So you have that tendency to conserve the apparel itself from public consumption. But today, that's different. It is everywhere. The police, the uniforms is everywhere in the market. The Air Force, Navy, immigration, customs, just name it. Everybody's apparel is in the marketplace. So if it's in the marketplace, it simply means it's for public consumption. That's exactly where the problem starts from.
There's this school of thought that also appears to believe that this whole trend, of impersonation of uniformed personnel, whether it's the police or the army, is driven by a WAP mentality. This rather WAP mentality that that only uniformed personnel have access to certain places or could easily get certain things. So they need to.
Is the mentality warped? It's not warped. It's a right mentality. It's
say
what
right?
we have. Of course, yes.
But the military and the police and others are confined to operate within the laws.
Well, they ought to operate within the laws. They ought to stand in queue. Take for example.
Maybe perhaps this derives from years of military rule in Nigeria, and I haven't seen how the military operated over time. It's ingrained this mentality in certain Nigerians, by the way, not all Nigerians, that dress in army uniform, you can go here, you can get this, you can enter a filling station, no queue, go straight to the front of the line. Let
us call things by their proper names. The truth is this: today, once you are dressed in that uniform, you have access to almost everything. That's the truth. Even where you ought not to enter.
So it's a driver. It's then a driver for the trend.
Absolutely, that's what I'm saying. If you today want to go to queue at the petrol station, gas station, whatever you may call it, and then you have a police uniform with you, you don't have to be in the queue. You just jump the queue. And nobody asks questions about that. So if you attach those advantages, if you attach those importance to that uniform, well, there are benefits that come with those importance. And those benefits, everybody wants to have.
But in some other climes, in some other areas, yes, there are benefits accruable, not just to serving, but even to veterans who have served their fatherland. And in some places, like, say, the US, for instance, where people dress, normal, average civilians, civies, like they're called, dress in military apparel, or they wear something like an insignia of the police force or something. It shows a love for servicemen. But that's not the case here.
Yeah, it's not the case here. Well, in America, for example, you just mentioned, wearing of those camouflage or military uniforms is not illegal. It is it's open, it's general. I remember there was an incident of a young man who just came back from America, and during the electionary period in my locality, he was wearing some of those camouflages. He had big problem with law enforcement. So in America, yes, it is open. It's all commerce arrangement. Anybody can wear any uniform. But it is always easy and very, very clear that you do not get extra benefits for wearing that.
Okay.
That is the difference here.
That's the difference.
Yeah, here, you get enormous benefits. You are not stopped at traffic lights. Whether it is a traffic officer that is there or the traffic light that is there, they don't stop at traffic lights. They don't queue. They don't take turns in doing things. So if those benefits are available for that uniform, well, it's a common understanding that where those benefits are available, people would like to explore those benefits.
So, sir, are you then saying, if I'm not mistaken, that in trying to reverse this trend, in curbing incidents of impersonation in Nigeria, or impersonation of uniform personnel in Nigeria, we may need to start within these organizations themselves. We might need to do some sort of internal purging and cleansing first,
yes,
to rid these organizations of certain privileges.
A society where you abuse, you give enormous extraordinary benefit, you give undue advantage to whoever is wearing uniform. Anybody who is wearing uniform can break the law and nothing happens to him. There are those benefits people want to have to. You see, those who are wearing those uniforms, they intend to achieve those benefits that those who ordinarily are entitled to it are also having. That's exactly what we're saying. But if we have a society where whether you are in uniform or not, whether you are wearing all kinds of apparels, you must take the cue. If there are no benefits attached to those uniforms, you see that there wouldn't be much attention to it. But that's not the case in Nigeria. Once you wear that uniform, you don't stand on the line, you have extra benefits, you disobey the laws, You have nobody to query you. With that tendency, people are bound to disobey or take those apparels for the benefits they get from them.
And that's how we see criminal elements exploiting the same avenue to don these apparels and then perpetrate dastardly nefarious acts in society, and then susceptible and innocent Nigerians, vulnerable Nigerians, fall prey to their to some of their works, their nefarious works. I mean, the laws are clear, like we talked about earlier, on what it means to adorn or to wear. It's called contempt on uniform right now. And yet, I don't know if you have an opinion on this. I see skit makers, sometimes donning a semblance, maybe not the real one, but a semblance of military and police uniforms. I'm not talking about professional actors now, because I think there are laws about that as well. So not professional actors. I'm actually talking about these social media skit makers and skit actors donning them. What does that also translate to? Doesn't that somewhat translate to contempt on the uniform as well? Is that not making a ridicule of these organizations and agencies, as it were?
Yeah, look at most of the comic artists. When they wear police uniforms, they make nonsense of police work. And to some extent, because there is not enough deterrent against it, there's no enough enforcement. Of course, yes, that's the problem. In law enforcement, we believe that where there is no deterrent, there's no proper enforcement. If you don't put sizable deterrent, the breaking of the law will continue. So if you see most of the movies, and whether they are professional movie stars or those that hack on these sites, fly-by-night ones, whichever it is, you will see that police uniforms have been worn, even with ranks, police ranks on them, and creating those problems that are associated with not knowing who the real one is and who the fake one is.
So we have this problem on our hands, and I see the possibility of the problem also expanding to the states, even when we do, if eventually we do go ahead and get state police, even at that level. At this point in time, while we're preparing, and thinking of how to go about state policing, what format and what structure it will take, shouldn't that also be part of the equation as well? How to perhaps close that gap if and eventually when we start and take off with state policing at that level, at state and local government levels?
Well, I've always been opposed to state police, especially to the extent to which you give command and control of arms and ammunition, and also the personnel that handle them, to governors. I'm totally opposed to it. I don't know the concept.
To the issue of state policing.
I don't know the concept of the state policing you're talking about, but what we have always encouraged is let the policing get to the people. We have let it be a community policing project. As many communities as we have, let us have the community policing projects with them. That is exactly what we have advocated, because taking policing to the people is the best that we have today. We have always agreed. Everybody knows that what we have right now, as it has to do with internal security, with the Nigerian police force, is not enough. It does not suffice.
True.
Everybody is very, very much opposed to the situation right now. We have all asked for other ways to make sure that policing reaches the people.
I'd like to thank you so much for coming on Insight. Chikwe Udensi Fellow, Chartered Institute of Forensic and Chartered and Certified Fraud Investigators of Nigeria, and also Systems Consultant, Interpol National Central Bureau here in Abuja. I'd like to thank you so much for coming on Insight.
Thanks for having me. I'm greatly honored.
And that's it on this episode of the program. Do join us same time next week for more on Insight. My name is Nnamdi Odipo. See you then.